to the evening chanting in English, Book 1, page 19.
Recollection, I venerate him excellent teaching, that which removes darkness, the Dhamma which is the supreme, secure refuge of all beings, as the second object of recollection, I venerate it with bowed head. I am indeed the Dhamma's servant. The Dhamma is my Lord and guide. The Dhamma is sorrow's destroyer, and it bestows blessings on me. To the Dhamma I dedicate this body and life, and in devotion I will walk this excellent way of truth. For me there is no other refuge. The Dhamma is my excellent refuge. By the utterance of this truth, may I grow in the Master's way. By my devotion to the Dhamma and the blessing of this practice, by its power, may all obstacles be overcome.
Now let us chant the recollection of the Sangha.
They are the blessed ones, disciples, who have practiced well, who have practiced directly, who have practiced insightfully, those who practice with integrity. That is the four pairs, the 8 kinds of noble beings. These are the blessed ones, disciples. Such ones are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respect. They give occasion for incomparable goodness to arise in the world.
Now let us chant the supreme praise of the Sangha.
Born of the Dhamma, that Sangha which has practiced well, the field of the Sangha formed of 8 kinds of noble beings, guided in body and mind by excellent morality and virtue. I revere that assembly of noble beings, perfected in purity, the Sangha which is the supreme, secure refuge of all beings. As the third object of recollection, I venerate it with bowed head. I am indeed the Sangha's servant. The Sangha is my Lord and guide. The Sangha is sorrow's destroyer, and it bestows blessings on me. To the Sangha I dedicate this body and life, and in devotion I will walk the well-practiced way of the Sangha. For me there is no other refuge. The Sangha is my excellent refuge. By the utterance of this truth, may I grow in the Master's way. By my devotion to the Sangha and the blessing of this practice, by its power, may all obstacles be overcome.
For those going out to do walking meditation, we'll do a bit of a shorter meditation this evening. We'll ring the bell about 7:45. We'll take a short break and then come back. We won't have the formal taking of the 8 precepts this evening. We'll just go straight into the Dhamma talks. So after the break, if everybody could just come back. So while people are coming back, just to give a little bit of an introduction to what's happening this evening, it's a hallowed tradition, hallowed Wat Nong Papong tradition for the more junior members of the community to give Dhamma talks on the last day of the Vasa period. And so this is an opportunity for people to talk about just what's coming up for them the last few months, and to maybe share some reflections, whatever they've been reflecting on. And once everybody's back, we'll also see if one of the lay people could be the one who does the request, so we're not requesting our own Dhamma talks. Multiple people can do it as well if you want.
Brahma Jaloka Tipati Sampati Gadnan Shalian Tiwarangaya Jatha Santi Dasatra Parasha Kashatika Tese Tu Dhammang Anukampi Mang Prashang.
Okay, so the way this will work is I'll be pulling names out of the bowl here, and whoever comes up can give 5 to 10 minutes. Could be a little bit longer. It doesn't just whatever is coming up for you. And whoever's name I pull and who I call up, then you can just start by bowing 3 times to Luang Por, and then you can bring your sitting cloth with you and take the seat and recite the Namo Tassa and then say a few words. And we'll wait till the end of all the talks, the end of the evening, for the Handamayang. So we don't need to do the Handamayang for every talk, but we'll just do it at the very end at probably around 11 or 11:30, or that's usually about how long it goes for. So if, again, whoever's name I call, you can just bow 3 times to Luang Por as an act of asking permission to speak, and then you can get up on the seat. So without further ado, Anagarika Jack, if you want to give the first talk, I invite you up.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Well, thank you all for being here. My name's Jack. I'm always inspired when I see people spending an evening to do Dhamma practice. A lot of things to do in the world, and people coming to do Dhamma practice. It inspires me to keep going. So thank you. So what's come up for me quite a bit, I'm very grateful for something very fundamental to the practice, but very new to me, is following precepts. I stumbled into Buddhism because I was interested in meditation, and for most of the time since then, I viewed practice as making sure I clock in hours on the mat and then do whatever I want for the rest of the day. A little compartmentalized, but and I should say that I'm very grateful to have stumbled into Buddhist meditation, and that even just the meditation alone, I'm very grateful for. But living here and being in a supportive community to follow precepts and to be able to trust that the people that I'm living with are also following precepts. It feels like a very safe place to be. I guess all the precepts of the eight, all the 8 precepts are very, I feel like they've all affected my life or my experience. But the one that I'm noticing for myself has taken quite a bit of intentional effort has been the 4th precept. All of them do, but I guess the one I'm mentioning right now is the 4th precept, undertaking the precept to refrain from lying. I think at a young age I decided that being a people pleaser was the way to go, and that has led me, when people ask me questions, I don't ask myself what the honest answer is. I ask myself, what is the right answer to tell this person? And often that requires me to do some imagination. And so I'm very grateful to stumble into a community where people are working on telling the truth. People are telling the truth and helping support me in being able to find the truth inside myself, which sometimes can be difficult. something that's come up for me in my mind a couple of times. I hope to quote you as closely as possible, Ajahn Chunda. But something I heard Ajahn Chunda mention a couple of times at least, to my memory, is that sometimes there are some people who lie enough that even they don't know what the truth is. And that has really stuck in my mind because, at least my memory of that, because I could identify with that. People asking me X or Y and me not knowing the answer to that because there's so much clouds in my mind around any questions. But learning to pause, and for this to be a culture and community where I can pause without somebody asking me why I'm pausing and requiring a very fast answer, where I can pause and make sure that what comes out of my mouth is the truth. This is one thing I'm very grateful to Abhayagiri for. I don't know if I have much more to say, but again, just to repeat and thank you all for being here, and thank you, Luang Por, thank you, Ajahn Yanako, and everybody else. And best wishes on everybody's practice.
Okay, thank you, Anagarika Jack. Try to get this as random as possible.
I'm not leaving because I don't want to listen to it anymore, but Jack and I are leaving early in the morning, so we're heading out.
Is he able to stay if he wants for a little bit, or should he go now?
Want to stay for longer, Jack? Or?
So,
It's up to you. I think it might be best if I go with. Okay. Yeah, up to you. Okay. It's being recorded too.
dice were slightly weighted in his favor.
We have a 4:30 departure from the monastery in the morning. So.
Tantisro.
I need a tissue.
We'll put tissues there.
I'm not going to cry, I promise. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Saṅghāṃ namasāmi. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all. Anumodana for supporting me on my 2-week retreat. Had a quiet 2 weeks. It's been quite nice. Sadhu, thanks for feeding me. I had the good fortune to spend some time in Thailand last year. I spent my Vasa in Thailand. And on my way back, I went to see family in South Alabama. I grew up in a small town called Fairhope, in the very southern portion of Alabama. It's kind of a rectangle, and there's 2 little legs on the southeastern portion. And I grew up on the eastern shore of Mobile Bay. If you drag the panhandle of Florida just a little bit further west, that's where I grew up. So I went to see my family, and whenever I go to see them, I walk alms around each day. And I've always got quite nice stories to share about the Southerners who feed me while I'm visiting, in addition to my lovely parents. But this trip, when I was coming back, I decided to do a 9-day tudong into the Florida Panhandle while I was visiting. It's 8:09, okay? I'm going to check that in a little bit. I don't want to go on too long and get the bell. That'll be embarrassing. So 8:09, let's remember that. So I was going to do a 9-day tudong into the Florida Panhandle. And there were a number of inspiring interactions that I had along the way. I'll have to skip over a few of them. But on I think day 2, I ran into this gentleman. He was Cambodian, and he offered me a full meal and a bunch of drinks. He actually offered me so much that I couldn't eat it all, and I didn't want to carry all the drinks he gave me, so I actually got to give some gifts to some strangers, which was quite nice. And he was offering me the food, and he offered me all the food, and then he put a $50 bill in my bowl. And I said, oh, that's very kind of you, but our precepts don't allow us to use money. He said, oh, it's okay, you can give it to charity. I said, oh, thank you, that's very kind, but we actually can't even touch money. He said, oh, okay, and so he took the money out. And I said, are you Thai? He said, oh, no, I'm Cambodian. He says he went to a monastery in Mississippi, which was it's about an hour and a half from where we were at that time. So it was quite a surprise to have somebody who just knew what I was doing and offer some food. And I think he was pretty surprised to see a monk wandering in South Alabama. So I continued on, and I'll skip over the guy who invited me to come see the bus that he lived in. And that was quite an Okay. Okay. That was quite an experience. He had a very aggressive dog that seemed unsure about Samana in the bus with him. But me and the dog actually became good friends by the end of my visit. And I don't know if that's because I really love dogs and I consider myself to be quite good with them, or if it was the fact that the guy was enjoying some herbal medicinal consumption during our conversation, and he was blowing it into the dog's nostrils. So he became quite friendly towards the end of the visit. So I'm not sure if it was that or just that we got along. So that was a nice experience, and it seemed like he didn't get many guests in his bus. So I was happy to share a little time with him, and then continue on my way. But
I got a ride from somebody that dropped me off. I went alms about right in between the Alabama and the Florida border. And I did like about a 4-hour sort of alms round, and I didn't get anything. And that was the one day that I actually didn't get any food. I was fed every other day. And somebody gave me a ride into Florida, and they dropped me off in Pensacola. And right when they dropped me off, a woman started talking to me at the gas station, and she was quite friendly, and she asked if I needed anything, and I informed her about our food rules and things like that. She said, "Can you take gum?" And so that day I did get 15 pieces of gum, which was refreshing in the afternoon for my long walk. But so I continued through Pensacola, and it's a very big city. It's quite a long walk to get through Pensacola, and I'm just following the signs to Highway 98, and it started to get a little late, and I was walking through a pretty rough part of town, and so I'm just trying to get out of the city because we basically just camp on the side of the road in the forest when we're going Tudong. So you don't want to be looking for a place to sleep in the city. You're competing with other people looking for a place to sleep, and that can be a little dangerous. But so it got dark, and I was getting close to the Pensacola Bridge, which is a bridge that's a couple miles, I think. It's a long bridge, and it was already dark, and I'd had a really long day. And I remember looking at Google Maps before I left, and I knew that there was quite a large forested area on the other side of the bridge to the south. So I thought, okay, I just got to get across this bridge, and it was probably, I don't know, but it might have been 8:30 or so at that time. And there was like a welcome center just before the bridge, and I thought, okay, I can go in there, I can use the bathroom, I can wash my face and stuff. And I went, and it was locked. So I thought, okay, all right, just keep going, just keep trucking, get across the bridge, we'll find a place to sleep. And as I just started to cross the bridge, there was a guy and this younger woman that were coming towards me, and we made eye contact, and they said hello. And we got to talking, and I told them what I was doing, walking Tudong, and that, as a Buddhist monk, and we don't use money, and we live off of alms, and we can only consume food that is freely offered. And he turned to his daughter, and he said, "Wow, honey, could you imagine if he was a Christian?" And I took that as a compliment. I felt like it was an expression of admiration for my devotion. So, and he said it in a very sincere way. And he said, "Hey, do you want to ride across the bridge?" And I said, "Oh, that would be great, thank you." So his daughter had her own car, so she left, and I got into the truck with this guy, and so we started driving across the Pensacola Bridge, and he said, "Have you talked to your mom? Have you told her how you're doing?" I said, "Not yet." And he pulled out his phone, and he said, "Give her a call." And I said, "Okay." So I called my mom, and I put it on speaker so that he could hear, and my mom answered, and I said, "Hey, Mom," I said, "I'm here in the car with Sean, and he's giving me a ride across the Pensacola Bridge." And she said, "Oh, I'm so thankful for you calling." She's got just an adorable Southern accent. And she said, "Thank you so much for taking care of my son." And Sean in the car, he said, "All the glory be to God." And I said, "Sadhu, sadhu." And so we chatted for a bit, and I didn't want to go on too long, and she said thank you to him a few times, and we got off the phone. And so he shared a conversation with me and my mom, which was nice. And we got across the bridge, and he says, "Well, I'm going to Fort Walton Beach," which is about 45 minutes from where we were. He said, you want to ride to Fort Walton?" And I was just kind of heading west, so I said, "Yeah, sure, let's keep riding." So we kept riding, and we just got to talking, and he started, I'm telling him about the practice of Tudong and my spiritual practice as a Buddhist monk, and he starts telling me about his challenges in life, and he was a veteran, and he struggled with drinking, and him and his wife were having some trouble, and then he got back into Christianity and his Christian faith, and sort of quit drinking and turned around his relationship with his wife, and he's sharing all these things with me about his spiritual struggles, and I'm telling him about my battle with the hindrances and defilements and trying to overcome them and live a virtuous life. And it was quite a intimate conversation, just sharing these aspects of her life, but we were both very just open about it. And we kept driving for a while, just talking about these things, sharing some of these deep struggles in these dark places. And he said, you know, I think my wife would be pretty upset if I brought a stranger home at 9 o'clock at night that I picked up off the side of the road. But you can sleep in my yard if you want to. And I said, oh, that'd be great, actually. Because when you're sort of camping on the side of the road, sometimes it can be a little bit stressful because you never really know if somebody's going to stumble across you sleeping there, and you know you might get in trouble or something like that. So I was happy to sleep in his yard. So I set up my Tudong gear sort of between some hedges and his fence where he kept his dogs, and slept in the yard that night. And the next morning he came out and he invited me in early, and he brought me inside and cut me a slice of fresh banana bread that Nana had recently baked, and poured me a cup of coffee. And I said hi to the two dogs that I don't think they were stoned, they were just friendly. And so I said hi to the two dogs, and I sit down, I'm eating my banana bread, and Nana, his wife's mother, comes out in the morning, and she starts cooking some steak and eggs, and they're just going through their morning routine. You know, it's like Nana's there helping with breakfast, getting the kid ready for school, and Sean's fixing the coffee, he's getting ready for work, and I'm just sitting there at the counter just talking with them. And they just invited me right into their life, and I'm sitting there enjoying the morning with them. And that was quite a delight. And it was nice to have a good meal and some coffee and some nice conversation with some good people. And a little while later, the wife came home, and she said hi, and he told her what was going on, and she was quite delightful too. And she asked me, she said, you know, is there anything you need? And actually needed a lighter. Lighters are very handy on Tudong, and for some reason mine had leaked out all the fluid while I was carrying it, so I didn't have a lighter, and so they offered me a lighter. And then she cooked me a meal for the day, and she put it in a Tupperware container, and she wrote a nice little note saying, you know, wishing you safe travels on your journey, bless you, kind regards, Sean, Bethany, Jax, and Nana. And I pulled that note out when I ate the meal after they dropped me off, and that was quite a nice little surprise to see that. And then that afternoon, I was just walking, and I went to sort of into a shopping center just to throw something away, and a couple Thai people came out. Oh my gosh, what are you doing here? They had a restaurant called Thai Fusion, I think, and they couldn't believe it. A Buddhist monk on Tudong in Florida. They'd never seen it before. They'd never seen a monk on Tudong in America, and they were so excited. And it was after the Lauvel mealtime, so they just gave me a couple bags of drinks, so I'm just lugging these bags of drinks with me, which was nice. And they gave me an open invitation. They said, if you ever come by, please stop by and see us if you're ever in the area again. And also Sean and his family did the same thing. They said, if you're ever in the area, come by and you can come stay with us. And the next night was the worst night in my life. I'm not going to go into detail about that. It's 8:21. But it involved a lot of ticks. It involved extremely cold weather and malfunctions with my Tudong gear. It was so bad, and I woke up so many times during the night, I actually broke into laughter because I thought this is the most miserable night I've ever had, and there's nothing I can do about it. So that was a good experience. And let's see, gosh. one funny experience was when I was still in Alabama, this one lady, she was actually kicking me out of the parking lot of her store. She's like, "You can't be here." And I was like, "Okay, just explain. I'm a Buddhist monk, and this is what I'm doing. I can't ask anybody for anything. If they want to give me money, I can't even accept it." And she's like, "Everybody's Hindu around here." I was like, "Really? Okay." And then I just asked if I could, if she knew anywhere I could fill up my water bottle, and she said, she was pretty stern when she first came out, kicking me out, And I just asked if there was somewhere I could fill up my water bottle, and she said, "I can fill it up for you." And she started to walk off, and she said, "You want ice?" I said, "Sure, that'd be great." And so she left, and so she came back, and she was a bit brighter after filling up my water bottle, and she gave it back to me, and I looked at her, I said, "You were joking about the Hindus, right?" Because it was Alabama. And she said, No, we're all Hindus that live on the street." I thought, wow, that's interesting. Who would have thought? Okay. One more. There's this. There's another day. I was walking through this one town. It seemed like quite a poor town. There were a lot of security cameras everywhere I went, and it seemed like there was a lot of poverty, and so it just felt uncomfortable actually just standing out somewhere with the cameras. I just thought someone was going to come out and harass me. So I ended up I didn't stay there that long. I didn't get any food. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to get any food today. And then I wandered by a Piggly Wiggly. And I thought, I'll go stand by the Piggly Wiggly. And so I went out to stand by the Piggly Wiggly. And I was there for maybe 3 or 4 minutes. And this older gentleman in a veteran hat is walking up, and he looks at me and he says, "Hey, have you eaten anything today?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Well, come on inside. Let's get you some." I said, "All right." And so he walks me back to the counter where they've got sort of the spread and they got like the styrofoam container. He's like, you just get whatever you want. You get as much as you want. And I said, "Okay." And so I'm picking out things. He's like, "Oh, that cream corn is good. Get some of that cream corn." He said, "We're going to fill you up. You get as much as you want. I'm going to take care of you, and then I'm going to come back and give me some of this." I said, "Okay, great. Thank you." He said, "You want sweet tea or you want Coke?" I said, I'll go with sweet tea. And for you Californians, that's tea with a lot of sugar in it. And so he got me all that food. He went to ring us up, and he purchases the food. He's like, "Oh, I got to go get you a straw." And he went back there and got me a straw and came back. He tried to give me his change, and I sort of explained the thing about money. And I said, but you fed me for the day, and I sure appreciate it. And he said, "All the glory to lift him up." And I said, "Sadhu." And so, okay, one more. Sorry. Okay, one more. The Christians really took care of me in Alabama and Florida. And so there was one more day, and this is a day I thought, I'm definitely not getting any food today. I was way out on this just empty highway, hardly any cars passing by. And at this time, midday was 1 o'clock because of daylight savings. It wasn't noon. So you're looking at your watch a lot on $2 wondering like, okay. And there's just some point where I think, well, there's just no way. There's no way I'm getting any food today. People definitely don't stop. I mean, in America, they don't know what you're doing generally. So the likelihood that somebody's going to stop on the road is pretty slim. And so I'm walking. It's 10:45. I thought, well, I guess I'm not getting any food today. My water was running low. And then I'm walking along, and this car pulls over, and this guy rolls down his window. He says, "I don't have much, but you need some water?" I said, "Oh, that would be great. I'm running low on water." And he gave me the water. He said, "You want some food?" I said, "Sure, I'd receive some food." And he gave me a crunch. I can't remember. It was like a protein crunch bar or something like that, which was delicious after a long day. And so he offered me that. And I just thought, wow, I did not expect getting any food today. I said, "You made my day today." And he said, how did he express it? He said, "This is in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Try talking to him, okay?" And he winked at me. And I said, "Sadhu." And he was heading the other way, so he did a U-turn. And as he was driving, reached his arm out the window and he said, "God bless you, brother." And I waved at him. So just a few stories from my Tudong, and Tudong can be a good tool for our practice and challenging ourselves and confronting uncertainty and discomfort and using the practice to find peace in the midst of these things. And I really like that element of it, but the part that I like the most is those interactions and just that reminder that there are good people everywhere. And as samanas, we get the good fortune to experience the best of humanity in a way that is impossible in any other sort of in any other lifestyle. When I think of going into those people's home, them welcoming me in and me being able to share this breakfast with them, and them just inviting me into their life and sharing their own stories of struggle and their spiritual practice, I just thought there's no other way that I could get the opportunity to see this side of people and to be invited into their lives. So it's quite a beautiful opportunity as a monastic. So I want to thank everyone for your support and for all those who have supported Abhayagiri over all these years and given me the opportunity to ordain as a monk and see and delight in this beautiful side of humanity. So, Anamodana. Forgot my tissue.
And next up, Anagarika Garrett. Get an upatak. Borrow me.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham Dhammam Sangham Namasami. Sabbe Sankhara Anicca. Sabbe Dhammam Anattati. So, I've been practicing as an Anagarika for about a week now. Well, there's still some contemplations though, even though it's been a very short time here. It's mostly just realizing how much I don't know. And there's a lot of it. A lot of every kind of thing, not just Dhamma, learning forestry work or learning how to fold my robes the right way. And this is something that just always comes up. I think unless you're enlightened, there's still some perception of ignorance left over. So working with it's really interesting. You kind of can watch yourself and you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I even doing this in this way? You're trying to figure this out, but you still don't know. So I've been kind of contemplating it as sort of similar to an episode of Twilight Zone, if you've ever seen this show before. And if you don't know, it's usually starts off pretty normal, and then there's some absurd plot twist and a completely different ending than how it started. My stepmom, she hates it. She says it's way too confusing. None of the episodes make any sense ever. She never knows what's going on. And that's kind of like a perfect analogy for samsara. We really don't know what's going on at all. We're just kind of here, going with it, going with the flow. When we look at the Buddha's life, he's one of the few ones that actually knew what he was doing fully. He's like fully aware and mindful. There's a sutta actually where this guy, he was trying to figure out if the Buddha's enlightened, and so he has this man follow him around and watch everything the Buddha does. And everything the Buddha did, he does mindfully. He doesn't just do anything without reason. And even as much as the Buddha smiling has a reason, it'll be like a certain tree the Buddha smiles at, and that'll be like one of the Jataka tales. The Buddha will remember this from a past life. So we're just trying to kind of get some mindfulness in just how we're going about just even walking. And it's so easy to lose our mindfulness and just not realize what we're doing. Especially when we're eating. That's a really tough one. Especially eating with all the senior Ajahns watching you. Really start to notice. You eat really careful and it ends up taking forever. It's a really slow process then. In our practice, we're trying to become Buddho. Like we always use this word Buddho in our meditation. We're trying to be the one who knows, like the knower. A lot of times we're just kind of the follower. We're just following our ignorance around. We're just following avijja. We're following our likes and dislikes and all of our cravings. And everything that comes up, we just sort of go with it. We don't really second guess a lot of it. A lot of it just happens and we just take it as it is and don't really contemplate anything like that. There's not really much clear thinking about it. It's not until we're in like a good meditative state where the mind's just calm, we can really start to see things a little bit more clearly. It's not perfect yet, but it's like a start. That confusion very slightly falls away, and things don't really seem as absurd, even though they really still are. When we contemplate, we're told to contemplate everything. Some things it doesn't really make sense to contemplate. We contemplate dukkha. We think we know what dukkha is. We think we already know what suffering is. But if we really understood what it was, we fully understood this truth of suffering, then we would be an enlightened being. So we say, that hurts. I stubbed my toe, that's suffering. But we don't really understand the full truth of it yet. sometimes this state of ignorance is almost like a dream-like state. Like there's been times where I've had this dream, and sometimes in the dream you get into a dream and a dream, and you keep waking up. Then when you wake up for the real time, you still don't know, am I really awake? Is this still a dream? Is this it? So you sort of stay in this confused state the whole day of not really knowing what's going on, not being able to really be too sure about anything. And it's just really interesting states. Not too sure I have too much more to say.
Pretty good after 1 week as an Anagarika. Look forward to next year. Tan Sivako. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Saṅghāṃ Namassāmi. Well, just like to apologize for my failure as a teacher. I probably can't teach you anything. But it's actually a good point that we have Kalyanamitta in the Buddha, and the Buddha has pointed out he held nothing back. He's pointed out all the teachings in the suttas, and along with the Maha-Arahats, and even lay teachers at the time of the Buddha. And we can take these as our spiritual friends. And that's a big deal.
getting close to Halloween, I might tell a spooky story. I'll change gears here. Seeing a lot of Halloween stuff on around today. Let's say there's a man, he's a farmer, and he's doing really well. He's making really good harvests, and let's say his star is rising, and there's a viceroy of the king, and he's become jealous of this farmer whose star is rising, and he starts spreading a lot of rumors to the king. So we could say this is very auspicious that his star was rising and he has all these great harvests, but now this viceroy is spreading rumors and telling the king that this farmer, he's a troublemaker. We've gone from auspicious to not so auspicious, and the king says, well, okay, I'll take care of that. And he does the viceroy a favor, and he imprisons this man. And if that wasn't bad enough, he throws him into a dungeon that's haunted. It's actually haunted. And this is very inauspicious. He was living his life as a farmer, and we labeled it as auspicious, and now we're labeling it as inauspicious. But yes, he's gone into this cell with some teachings with him. He had heard some teachings of the Buddha. So you could say he had Kalyana Mitta. And this room is haunted such that there's a demon, and it's telling him he's a fool, he's stupid. It's explaining every little thought that he has. This demon knows right away, and this demon's getting so much fun out of just laughing at him and showing him how dumb he is. And this is a hindrance. He's receiving a lot of ill will here, and this is within his mind, so he's experiencing this ill will. And being that all things are headed by mindfulness and converging on feeling. Now, we could go through other hindrances, but this one could be enough, because with this, we don't need other demons for the other hindrances. Just with this ill will, he's already agitated. He's already experiencing doubt. Am I a dummy? And he also wants to get away from this, and maybe sleep is the answer. Maybe if I could just go to sleep, I can just turn this off for a moment. And so he starts applying these teachings that he learned, and he's in this cell for, let's say he's in there for a long time. He's in there for years. But through contact and the experience of feeling, there's a route we can take here. We can experience feeling, perceive the feeling, proliferate on the feeling. He can try to go into a dialogue with this demon, and now he's just kind of dancing with him and playing his game. Or he can bring up the teachings and cultivate wisdom. We could say yoniso manasikara, or wise attention. And through this practice and seeing impermanence and having a feedback of exactly what is and isn't working, because this demon, it lets him know. And when he sees impermanence through the Buddha's teachings, he's released from that torture of all this. It all falls away, and kind of, we could say, seeing Kondanya saw seeing impermanence, he sees also not self, that there's no permanent self, and through that, let's say in this story, this demon is instantly passes away and is reborn as a Dhamma protector. Because now the most auspicious thing that could possibly happen has happened. This is worth more than all. If it were raining gold, the Buddha says this would be far more worth way more than if it were to just rain gold on you and you were the king of the world. So it's quite interesting that we do this. We label things and we decide this is inauspicious and this is auspicious, but definitely leading inwards, we can find what is most auspicious by listening to our Kalyana and our spiritual friend, the Buddha, and the teachings he has pointed out. And I don't know how scary that story was actually, but there it is.
Thank you. And, would you like a break now or one more? You're doing okay? Okay, we'll do next talk. Anagarika Kiran.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So I've been in Anagarika here for 5 months now, and it's a lot of learning the ropes, a lot of learning how to have humility and respect and having gratitude for the teachings, gratitude for my teachers, the Kalyanamitas, who inspired urgency and got me to enter this role. And a lot of gratitude to the lay community for making this role a possibility. And something I've been working into is learning how to adopt the training standard. And there's a sense of laxity that can come up, one extreme, sense of rigidity that can come up, another extreme. And then trying to find how can I be rigorous, because that's not always rigidity. And so just seeing like how labile these personalities that I adopt can be. And, at one moment I can be a noble warrior that takes one piece of cheese at midnight tea, and I'm going to let myself go, and then the next moment I've let myself go, and not in the right way. And so, so it's about, a lot of appreciation for the teachings, because often things come up, how to deal with some of the issues in life, memories, things like feeling angry, this person wronged me, and how could they do that to me? And just seeing how we can be like so pious against ourselves, we throw the book at ourselves. It's like, well, don't you know Dhammapada 1, anybody who says he robbed me, he beat me, he abused me is, paraphrasing, headed to the plains of deprivation. It's like, don't you even know the basic teachings? How can you be angry? But what I've found helpful is contemplating how we reify these senses of personality, this sense of me, this sense of other, they did that to me. And just seeing people using the teachings, using what the Buddha says us, having faith in that. People are whirlwinds. And the nature of whirlwinds is to pick things up and to throw things at you sometimes, and I do that too. And seeing what has happened as vipaka, the result of kamma, seeing things in terms of yoniso manasikara, trying to contemplate along those lines. And one of the images that comes up is this idea of like a hurricane, born from causes and conditions, arising from that, and growing because of impersonal causes and conditions. And there's an I, and we track it by time and location. We identify it, give it a name, Hurricane Katrina, Anagarika Kiran, and eventually, we've solidified an identity in what is empty, or what is changing, and this can be a source of suffering, and it can help us to think in these terms, to kind of desolidify some of the dukkha that we're creating for ourselves. Because we also we think that we need to be somebody, and we think, who am I going to be? Who will they be if I do this? And we think in terms of being, which is a domain we don't have control over. So maybe we can think in terms of doing the wholesome, kusala kamma, which are actions that don't stem from greed, hatred, and delusion. And one of the ways to do that is to begin by following the precepts, and begin with sense restraint, begin with investigation. And I have a lot of faith that there's value in that, and that can be liberating of the suffering that we manufacture for ourselves, because it is a continuous process. And
we do it in so many different ways. And it's not in our control. And there is liberation to be had, and I have faith that there is in taking the Buddha's teachings on faith, making that first step, and seeing for ourselves. The Buddha exhorts us to come and see. And we do have the capability to do. And ultimately, if we then do good, maybe we can be more freely. So I offer that for reflection.
We can take a 5-minute break, stretch our legs, use the facilities, and come back. Okay, we're really getting through these talks. We're already halfway through. At Wat Nong Papong, the year that I spent the Vasa there, my 7th Vasa, there was 61 bhikkhus. They had to give the Dhamma talks, and they had to do it over a period of 2 days. So we're fortunate. Not quite there yet. Okay, and next is Anagarikas Shan.
Helpful. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Saṅghāṃ Namasami. Well, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all here. It's interesting to be up here. That's what it's like. In the center of the room, with a mic and a camera on me. Yeah, it's an interesting experience to be up here as an Anagarika. I think the other ones have kind of touched on it. I've received 2 bits of advice about giving these talks, and I'll paraphrase both of them. The first was say something true and get off the mat. And the second one was try not to be too pretentious. So I'll endeavor to follow both of them. This can be kind of a long night. It's really lovely, though, to get a chance to hear what everyone has to say. And I was really struck last year listening to the talks, and you can really see just the way that people's different personalities really shine through. And there's something kind of lovely in that. I felt like I sort of knew everyone in the community slightly better at the end of each of the talks. Yeah, let's see. As I'm sure everyone here knows, and presumably most of the people watching the live stream know by this point, we recently acquired a new Anagarika. And so I've been thinking recently, one of the aspects of that, watching someone sort of adapt to the differences, is it's got me thinking a lot about wearing white all the time, which, kind of annoying on some levels, but the kind of adaptation that you make as you get used to wearing clothes that just stain based on looking at them wrong. And, the kind of places that become scarier all of a sudden, the dye shed, terrifying. Even just to stare at the door, it's like, one of those haunted movies, scary film. Anyways, but no, just the sort of practice of trying to take care of white clothes. And, I think there's a lot of talk about sort of the added mindfulness of wearing white all the time. And that's definitely something that I've experienced. I stain them less and mark them less than I used to. But also I think the thing that I've realized is that part of wearing white is just you will stain them and mark them. There's just no way. There's just no way to go about a life, especially when you live outside and you work and you eat and you do, everything in these clothes day after day. We don't have a lot of different pairs, so they inevitably they get marked and they get stains, and and sure, I'm better maybe than I used to be. I'm more careful about leaning up against things or like that, but there's just no way around it, You maybe now, sure, I shake the hot sauce a little bit further away from me, but then you grab some chocolate mousse at the house blessing and realize that now it's all over your pavillon and there's really no way to wash it. And you grab the 700-pound piece of granite covered in concrete dust, and concrete dust is really quite hard to get out of white clothing. I think maybe one of the kind of nice bits about wearing white ultimately is you just kind of, some days, on my best days maybe, I kind of find that space where it's just about cleaning them, just coming back. They're never perfect. Pretty sure this is a pin mark. I don't think that's ever going away. But, it's just this kind of process, I guess, of just coming back to them and cleaning them and washing them and spot cleaning them and washing them and getting them dirty again and doing it all over. And maybe on my best days, maybe there's this ideal that occasionally I come in contact with where, you stop cleaning your whites because you're scared of the stains, and you start doing it out of, compassion and respect for the whites, for yourself, for the training, for your teachers, for the Anagarikas who have come before you, and for the Anagarikas who've come after you. And there's really, there's no way to end up in this world where you just have perfect whites all the time. It's just not going to happen. But, if you just start to enjoy cleaning them, then maybe it's not so bad. And also, eventually maybe you start wearing clothes again that don't just accept stains by looking at anything red. And I guess maybe that's the other thing I've been thinking of a lot recently, is, something called upasama anusati, the contemplation of peace, stillness, maybe even kind of the contemplation of nibbana, and what that means, and how important it is in the process of, you clean your whites partially because, eventually maybe you won't be wearing white all the time. And there's a line in a poem I think of a lot, or thought of when I first heard about this concept of upasama anusati, of if the abolition of slave manacles began as the vision of hands without manacles, if the shutdown of the extermination camps began as imagination of a land without barbed wire and crematoria. And just that idea of how important it is to imagine something else, something different, to imagine that eventually you do get better at keeping your whites clean, and maybe also that eventually you don't need to clean your whites every day because you're no longer wearing whites. and just to keep that in mind as something to be moving towards, even as I try and accept and try and find joy in cleaning them. So I think in the interest of brevity, I'll leave it there. I hope everyone is well and happy and abides in clothes that are, brown or other darker colors that hide stains well. And I'll leave that for reflection. If there's anything useful, hope you take it with you. If not, please leave it be.
That reminds me of when I was in Anagarika and put my whites into the laundry with something that had dye in it, and they all came out light yellow. Tan Rakito.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Saṅghāṃ Namasāmi. You may have noticed I kind of, when I walked up to Luang Por, I kind of came around a long way and kind of came straight at him. Or maybe you didn't, but something while I was sitting over at my seat, a memory of a time when I was in Thailand a few years back. I had the very good opportunity to be attending to Luang Por for a period of time, and got to travel about with him and go to, visit different monasteries and see different Kruba Ajahns along the way, and it was all quite a amazing opportunity that just doesn't come along every day. And so there was one day that we were going to go and pay our respects to the Sankaraja of Thailand, which is a pretty big deal to me. It's kind of like visiting the Pope or something, or the Pope of Thailand, right? And so it was Luang Por and Ajahn Moshe and myself, and I think Nana Jad were driving us up there, and so, as normal, I was a little bit anxious, new situation, So anyway, we go into the receiving room, and all three of us get a beautiful tray of flowers to offer to the Sangaraja, and so we're there. The Sangaraja comes out, takes his seat, and then Lampa goes up, offers his flowers, and there's some pleasant chit chat going on, and then he pulls back, and then Ajahn Moshe comes up to offer his flowers, but he kind of comes, he comes up to the Sangaraja at an angle, creeping up at an angle, and as he approaches, the Sangaraja rejects him. He goes, go back, do it again. And so he goes back, and then he comes straight at him, and then he accepts his offering, and so now by this point, as a 3 Vasa monk, I'm like kind of semi-terrified, just some kind of Farang with tattoos, and I'm gonna go meet the Sangaraja. So I made sure I came at him straight, but it seemed like I was almost crawling. I was just kind of creeping up, just ever so low as I could, and having the flowers kind of covering my head, and then when I finally got to his little receiving table, I kind of offered them up, and I look up a little bit, and he's just got this big broad smile on his face, and it just kind of broke all the anxiety I was experiencing, but it was at the time it wasn't funny, but now looking back on it, it was quite a funny little experience that I had. And we're taking pictures afterwards, and he's looking at my tattoos, and he sees my daughter's name on my shoulder, and he's like, "Oh, Sophie, oh, okay, right." It was kind of funny. I had all these preconceived notions about the situation, and he was actually quite a sweetheart. So anyway, I guess just about Pavāraṇā Day in general, it's it's a day that the Ajahns get to, kind of take it easy a little bit, step back and see the juniors, deal with giving little talks and whatnot, and it's a good thing. It's you think of all the teachings the Ajahns give over the course of a year, through being either tired maybe, or they're not feeling well, or busy, but that duty falls on them, and they follow through with it, and it can be taken for granted. And so for one day, it's like the juniors get to experience having to come up here and talk to the mic and talk to the lay people and be in front of the camera, and so it's for me, it brings up a lot of gratitude, for that that offering that the Ajahns make, and I know at times can be challenging, and we have teachers that go down to the Bay Area and all points in between in the country, around the world, giving teachings. So much appreciation for that, and I hope not to drag the quality of Abhayagiri teaching down too much tonight here. I don't really have a kind of a plan for this talk. It's kind of just as things popping up. But I guess what's kind of been coming up for me over the tail end of the Vasa and the final weeks of the Vasa, just kind of reflecting on what am I doing, where am I going, and soon we'll have monks traveling out. Lampa and Tanajan Guridhamma will be going to England for extended stays. We have other monks going on travels here and there, and and I've got a lot of mudita for them, and happy for them. And at the same time, there's a tinge of sadness of like not being able to see your teachers and friends very often. But That's only natural. And but what it kind of was showing me, especially since I've considered kind of going around, traveling possibly too, but then ultimately the thought that pretty much everything I need is right here, and a pretty ideal situation for me. When I first came here as a layperson, I was quite impressed with the teachers, the facilities, and just the energy of the place, and how closely it kind of resonated with the Pali Canon, and this beautiful forest, beautiful quiet forest. Just a wonderful setting. Everything I need to practice. And so for me, and plus being kind of an old guy of sorts, it's like, well, do I need to travel? Probably not. How many hours of teachings have I listened to? How many books have I read? It's for me, it's probably, time to just apply the teachings, finding more skillful ways of applying the teachings in my practice, in my life, everyday life, on the in the here and now, and learning to kind of be more self-reliant, more of a internalizing the triple gem in myself more, and being more resilient to change, more resilient to having my, teachers leaving, friends leaving, and different things that affect the mind. And just kind of, grow up a little bit, God, I'm 63, but sometimes I feel like I'm still like 14 years old. But so it's, kind of a intention to, try to find ways of being more, just more self-reliant, taking myself more as a refuge, and being less dependent on outside conditions. And we'll see how that goes, but that's the intention going forward. Well, I don't really have much else to say. Thank you.
Next up is Tanhemako.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Hello, everybody. It's been very nice to listen to everybody's talks, and it's a nice festive way to end the Vasa. And I'm very appreciative to all the people who are here and who come here often and may not speak to them, but are inspiring for just offering their time and generosity. And I'm appreciative to my brothers in the Holy Life, and also Senior Ajahns in Luang Por. There's a reflection I've been thinking about the last couple months, and it's from the Samyutta Nikaya. There's a discussion about the hindrances, and there's one particular line that stood out and has been linking up with other things, and that is, it's a Ajahn Jeff translation, but it says, the lack of nutriment for restlessness and anxiety is, there is stillness of awareness, and to foster appropriate attention to that, that's the lack of nutriment for the arising of restlessness and anxiety. And when Luang Por was giving a guided meditation for the Singapore group, that guided meditation started out with posture and feeling comfortable, and then Luang Por, I can't quote exactly, said something like paying attention to stillness that's already there. And that was an angle that I had usually wouldn't consider. It's just a different approach that's been really interesting. Instead of trying to make things still, just to notice the stillness that's already there and kind of to feel into a little bit. And also how that's advice for the hindrance of restlessness and anxiety. And there's when I first encountered Buddhism, I was reading some random pages from a book, and there was a Tibetan monk who said that awareness is the most mysterious thing in the universe. And it's pretty amazing that we all have this in common, and that it's there, and is always an option to go back to, similar to just sensing the body. But it's often just really covered up. And I was thinking recently about, there's this movie with dinosaurs in it, and there's the T-Rex dinosaur, and the way that you hide from the T-Rex is that you don't move, and then the T-Rex can't see you. And I was thinking of how stillness, that we're often like the T-Rex, where we only see things that move. And it's been part of the sense contemplation, how the senses are always picking up things that move. to foster appropriate attention to the stillness of awareness. Luang Por gave a morning reflection, and he talked about paying attention to the space that holds things. And I found that the space is kind of to the elements like earth, water, fire, and air, as internal awareness is to feelings and perceptions and thoughts. And I found it really helpful to experiment just walking around in the woods or being around in the cloister to experiment with paying attention to space and noticing how that can be really calming or revealing of how the mind is if I don't find the space very interesting, or sometimes it's beautiful. And then going to have a sit, and then just not thinking so much about these things, but using them as guides for the exploration of these really mysterious and amazing things that we all have available, and this wonderful place to explore within and without, and learn from each other. And yeah, I hope everybody has a nice evening. That's it for me.
Tan Obasi.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ dhammāṃ sanghaṃ namasami. It's been quite lovely hearing everyone's reflections. It's a brightening thing. See us all come together and express how we're practicing and how everyone's doing. And I've noticed over the years going into this night, there can be a lot of anxiety or worry, like what's going to happen, and then as soon as people start talking, I'm like, these are my friends, and they're expressing themselves in a bright way. And I noticed it tonight, at least, almost instantly. It's like there's a feeling of safety that comes up, a feeling of family, a feeling of being surrounded by good people that are really looking into what reality is all about, what this life is all about. And so as people have been speaking, there's been a warmth. It's been growing in my heart. So I really appreciate everyone for the different ways they speak about Dhamma and what they come with. And everyone coming together just creates this supportive community. And so I just have a lot of gratitude towards all my teachers, and that includes all the Ajahns that haven't spoken tonight, Luang Por Chah especially, and then also all my teachers that have just spoken, all my friends. So I feel like I learn a little bit of something from each of their angles, and so I really love that. I've been really enjoying the contemplation of death recently, and intuitively I would say that, and it kind of be like, it sounds a little scary, a little frightening, don't really want to think about that, but then as I actually do it and I kind of put the mind there, I've been noticing there's been a softening quality, a kind of a sense of ease that comes up where all the things that I thought mattered, that seem so important in the current storyline that's being run, they fade. I find it's really helpful that all the real priorities come up of, well, where's the mind right now, and am I okay if I die? Am I okay with the mind, with how it is? I find it really helpful because it pauses me, and when the answer is no, it's like, well, how can I cultivate these qualities of goodness, of love, of caring to myself and those around me, to peace, to stillness, so that the mind is in a place where it feels calm, where it feels satisfied and ready to die. So I've been using that as a judge of practice, and it's been extremely helpful. So when the mind gets agitated or confused, anxious, like, okay, it's okay. Am I ready to die? And then rather than what I would expect of sort of careening off the cliff and feeling intimidating or frightened, everything gets calm. It's like, it's okay. And so I wanted to point to the potential for the easeful side, the calming side of death recollection, not needing it to be a frightening, a morbid, a gruesome thing, but rather a calming process, a process of priority, of looking towards what really matters in this human life, how we can cultivate the good, be peaceful. Yeah, like I kind of mentioned in the beginning, I already feel so full of such good Dhamma from my Kaya Nimittas. I feel not much need to add more, and so I'll leave it there for tonight.
Finally, our last speaker for this evening, Tandamawaro.
Kasame bante mahatero detu dhammagatam gatetum. Please. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Saṅgham Namasami. As the night goes on, energy becomes quite important. So, with whatever we're putting our attention to at this point, notice the quality. Am I energized? Or am I not? That's how we know we've touched into the wholesome. And the only two emotions that we need to consider at this point are joy and tranquility. Are they there? If not,
let's bring them there. And if they are there, let's increase it and just crank that dial. Keep going. And so as I continue on, please just keep that in mind. That's my one encouragement that I try to keep on reminding myself of. It's just touching into that basic idea of joy and tranquility, and having that be the foundation to carry us forward on this path. I am not a morning person. I remember waking up many times in the middle yurt in white with this sense of, well, first of all, confusion. And then when I realized that I was an Anagarika at Abhayagiri, this sense of pure dread. And then I would look at the clock, and it would usually be about like 4:50, 4:51, 4:52. And my neighbor at the time was Luang Por. So there would be the quick process of, the only way you're going to make it down for morning puja, I know you're in a state of absolute dread for this morning and the possibility of existing right now, but if you want to make it for morning puja, you're going to have to grab your bag, run out of your kuti gracefully, and then somehow, you hear Luang Por's vehicle start up. You're kind of like, that's my only way down. That's my only chance. So, and then you kind of just like slowly put your hands in Anjali as Luang Por gracefully stops next to you. I don't know how many times that happened, but it happened many times. It happened. And I mention that because we all have our stories. We've all gone through challenges, difficulties, but we've learned and grown from that. We wouldn't be here otherwise. And if we take a step back and really contemplate how many times we've sat down for meditation, how many times we've reaffirmed to ourselves, yes, this is what I want to spend my time doing. I've had the nice fortune of, it's like 4 or 5 people I've had extensive conversations with recently, all in their either late teens or early 20s that have just really brought to the fore what it was like to be at that age. There was a time when I had maybe just 2 semesters left of college that, all the boxes were getting checked off. good school, good friends, good family, everything material that I wanted. And yet slowly this veil was getting removed. Everything was just becoming tasteless. And it was almost kind of like someone just like pushed back this curtain, and all of a sudden dukkha was just there. And all the normal avenues that I normally had to kind of keep myself happy weren't working. And it was real. I really went into quite a state of depression, couldn't go to school, couldn't really figure anything out, and wasn't really finding answers. And I remember hearing that in some of the conversations I've shared with these people as well, that there's this something not adding up, something not working. And it takes quite a bit of courage to really turn to that and say, I really want to address this. I know I have the option of trying to push it away or just say everything's okay, or just don't worry about it. But I know that it's there. And what happens if I actually turn to it and try to find some way to actually address this? And so from that point, it just gives me quite a great sense of joy now that there's so much wholesome effort that was really engaged in from that point up until now. I don't know if everyone knows the Dallas Cowboys. I hope everyone does. Because if you're a football fan, then it's like they are the best of the best of the best. My family moved to Texas when I was young, and so my dad was actually not a Dallas Cowboys fan. So I have many memories of him screaming at the TV in pain and anger on Sundays during the 90s because the Dallas Cowboys that was what was on TV too. If you wanted to watch football, it's like, you live in Texas, Dallas Cowboys are on, and they're totally dismantling some other team. And it almost feels akin to being in this tradition, that there's such a high level of sincerity and commitment to practice and to really living this training, that sense of joy and that sense of tranquility it feels like the more I develop a sensitivity to it, that it's just so pervading. And when the mind gets in that space, then we really have the opportunity to create something. And I feel that's what the Buddha is trying to encourage us to do, is to create a happiness outside of sensuality. And maybe if you're a baker, or maybe if you're not, what we're trying to do is make bread. And you need your wet ingredients, and you need your dry ingredients. And I mentioned joy and tranquility because they're the wet ingredients. And they're nice to start off with because water is quite sustaining. And at least in my mind, it's something that it just feels so easy to come to. And there's a certain kind of energy and quality to it that just delicious on its own. And water is that way as well. We can take it on our own, and it can be quite nourishing. And that can sustain us for quite a long time. And then the mind will get to a certain point where maybe I want some kind of nourishment that's even really nourishing. I'd like to feed. I really do want that bread. I'm ready for some bread. And what are our dry ingredients? The more sobering, unattractive qualities that on their own, it's like eating flour, dry flour, at least in my mind. If you just go straight to asubha, if you just go straight to death contemplation, impermanence, yeah, you can pick it up that way, but it's almost kind of like picking up a big lump of flour and just sticking it straight into your mouth. Just not having a lot of fun here. Not really doing it for me. But when you've identified where your water is, and you really have that sensitivity to being able to access it, and when the two come together in harmony, and you're kneading and you're working the two together slowly through trial and error, sometimes you might just get not dough, but that's what you're really trying to get. You're putting those qualities together and making bread. So this is what I would think of in terms of how I would describe the first jhana. All those qualities are there, so we're away from sensuality. We have piti sukha, which maybe we can think of as joy and tranquility. We're secluded, we're engaged with what we're doing, and we're really thinking. We're using the thinking process, and all of that's working in harmony together. So those are just some thoughts that I had bubbling up, and I'm very happy to be here with everyone. Just like to express my gratitude for being able to be here and do what I'm doing with everyone here. I'll leave that for your consideration.
Very wonderful to hear everybody speak. And this year we ended a little bit earlier, 10:08. The vigil this evening will be optional, so there could be a truck going up, and then for anybody who likes to stay, there can be tea at midnight. And also, we can close with the verses of sharing an aspiration on page 33 of Book 1, and a dedication for Stephen Bernard, who's having colon surgery tomorrow.
Now let us chant the verses of sharing an aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings,
so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma.
The Blessed One's disciples,
who